Okay, I think we're ready to get started.
Great. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon for those East Coast and West Coast. We appreciate you joining. We've got some great folks on the line with us today to go over some topics that we're very excited about. Hopefully you guys are well. 10 ways that business-to-business companies can gain more from social than B2Cs. And we'll go over a few different ways that we look at this. There's some fantastic ways that B2C companies have leveraged social, some fantastic way that B2B's companies leverage it, but I think that oftentimes it gets overlooked the way that B2B companies are taking a look at it. So today we'll focus in a little bit on some real tactical ways that we have found B2B companies can leverage the social space. We know that there's been some incredible growth in social, the influence that social can have on our daily lives, on our personal lives. We all use it in different ways. There's a lot of stories out there from a brand and specifically marketing perspective. We want to take a look at the way the businesses that serve consumers are leveraging it in a way that might be a little bit different than the B2B space. So we're going to explore some of the ways that B2B companies are taking a look at that, and we've got a couple of fantastic individuals that are going to help us out with that. First off, Bill Habib. Bill is Vice President of Product Marketing here at Oracle. He runs our social and commerce products, 20 years experience in high-tech marketing. He's run marketing from the VP level, the C level from 3 companies prior to joining Oracle. And prior to his current role was the VP of marketing for Endeca, which was then acquired by Oracle. Fantastic to have Bill on the line with us today. And we've also got Jonathan Wichman. Jonathan is the co-founder of Orca Social, not to be confused with Oracle Social. Orca Social is a B2B social media consultancy. Jonathan really rose to fame when he brought Maersk Line to the forefront as a great case study in the B2B space. He himself has had received acclaim from McKinsey, Forbes, the Altimeter Group. He's got a background in literature, copywriter, a concept developer. He's also, many don't know, a published author. And Jonathan's got a great deal of knowledge from his direct experience working not just with Maersk, but also some of the brands, the B2B brands that Orca has been working with over the last couple of years. So we're glad to have both Jonathan and Bill with us. Guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So for those on the line, we're going to walk through and discuss some of the ways that B2Bs are using social, but we're going to try and save some time at the end for questions. So for those of you that would like to have questions, please use the online chat to send your question in. We'll have a moderator at the end that will collect all of those, and then we'll open it up to Bill and Jonathan to handle those at the end. All right. So first off, first question, guys. I think that broadly speaking, we take a look at B2B and we say why is it the brand B2B should be using social today? Sounds like we've got a little bit of an echo there.
It sounds a bit spooky, but a nice addition, I think, to the webinar. I think I don't know if there's an echo on me right now, but
no, you sound fine.
That's good. I think no surprise. I think there are really many good reasons why B2B companies should embrace social. There's a lot to gain from it, but I think basically it's an opportunity for them to reach out and really connect with people, maybe for the first time ever, compared to B2C companies who are, of course, used to this way of communicating where it's not as rational and boring, but more people-oriented, personal channels in many ways. So they have a lot to gain, I'd say, because a lot of these great silent giants, they're almost at point zero, maybe a bit further than that. So just taking the first step is a big move, and I think it of course it takes a bit of courage, but there's a lot to gain just from taking that first step. Long term, I think it's about that here you see the photo. It's basically millennials. It's young people, and what we see is, and I think that'll really be a huge challenge for companies that are not using these channels like people expect of them. That they're not attractive as employers in a few years and maybe even today. So it's about simply just keeping up with times and being a modern, transparent employer. And then it's we know the millennials, they like to they care more about culture and collaboration, and they're more attracted to that than what we've seen in the past. So that is part of it. How do you want to attract new talent? Having a social profile is surely one way of making sure that you're not lost in that game, because people do go in, check your Facebook, Twitter profiles before they apply for a position. And then I think overall it's about having an organization where you empower them, where you make use the organization and all the many things that it can do to get ready really for a future where digital will no doubt play an even larger part of it. So it's also an insurance against being disrupted by collaborative economy and what have you. So I think that's sort of what I see overall. There's good reasons why.
Great. What about you, Bill?
Yes, I don't know if I can add to Jonathan, but I agree with everything that he said. It's all about those relationships and connecting with the audiences. And I guess what I would add to that and expand on a little bit is you've got this concept of raising your brand awareness and getting it every place where somebody might stumble across you. As we all have seen, I think, the statistics about the buying process for customers now being 57% completed before they actually engage with your salespeople. So I think it's about raising the brand awareness every place you could possibly raise it, and oftentimes connecting with audiences that you may have never known about or thought about, and you didn't know that they existed, but they actually know you exist. The ability to move from really 0 to 60 with a relatively little investment, where this in the B2C world, it takes a rather substantial investment from a paid advertising perspective to reach millions of people across your potential customer base. But with B2B, a relatively modest investment can get you from a fairly early stage in your social media kind of maturity model to having a very substantial presence, and makes even small companies look very big. You don't need to make a huge investment in order to look big. And the last point here is it's where you'll find your buyers. Some recent research out from IDC earlier this year is very, very eye-opening on the use of social driving B2B purchasing decisions. And if I may, I'd love to just flash a couple of interesting statistics here. So they asked an audience of about 760 respondents, have you ever used social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or online professional communities to assist in any way with your purchasing decisions for the company? The results are really remarkable. 75% of the entire sample said they had actually used social media to help them with company purchasing decisions. And the data gets even more interesting when you look on the right. 84% of C-level or VP executives use social to assist in some way with their purchasing decisions. So 84% said, yep, I'm using social to help me with my buying decisions for B2B. So the customers are out there and they're using social. Even more specifically, the question, have you or somebody on your purchasing team used LinkedIn to support a purchase process in the last 12 months? you look on the right, 63% of the C-level or VP executive had used LinkedIn to support a purchase process in the last 12 months. And why might that be? If you just look here in this final data, people were asked the extent to which their professional networks and social made them more confident in their buying decision. And in fact, 76% on the left said they prefer to work with vendors that have been recommended to them by somebody they know, or with salespeople who have been referred by somebody they know. Their network is important for reference checking. On the right, when using social media as a resource to support the process, how do you feel it helped you improve your buying decision? 56% of them said they felt more confident they had the information to make their decision by leveraging social media. So bottom line, your buyers are out there, and you want to be in front of them and influencing them.
Makes sense. And when you guys think about, oftentimes we talk about the rules of marketing. We've got, as marketers, we've got some different rules as they relate to KPIs and whatnot. Are the rules for social that much different? Jonathan, have you seen that we tend to follow the same lines and rules of engagement in the social space as we do, broadly speaking, in marketing?
Well, I think a lot of companies have surely, tried to, really just apply the same rules or the same tactics that they've, been used to applying in the past. And but I've seen it again and again, and both from other companies and from companies I've worked with, that social rules and marketing rules, they're in many ways sort of opposites. And when you think about it, I mean, the way it worked, sort of just as an example or an image of it is if it's with social, it's very much like a dinner party or something. It's if you go in there as just trying to market your product or your service, I mean, it'll very much it'll. I mean, at least it's a sure way to ensure that you won't get invited again. Nobody wants to have a salesperson in there, and I think that's what people are not really. It's been difficult. It's easy to understand, but it's difficult to really truly act upon day in and day out. Is that you shouldn't sell in there. Instead, what you need to do is very much what you need to do if you want to be sort of a social champion, and that would be something where you apply empathy and where you listen to people and you change your voice depending on what party you are in, and then you might tell a good story here. You might help someone or chat with whatever people are interested in. So I think it's very much opposites. So it's about social intelligence in many ways. So it's more like an opportunity for B2B brands to humanize their company than to go out and really just take a big part of the change the market share or something like that.
I think that's a great way of looking at it. The idea of humanizing your brand, I think, makes it very intimate experience for a consumer, for somebody that's buying products or goods.
Yeah, and also means it also means that it's actually good to improvise now and then, but you need to have a really good idea of what is your tone of voice and how does all of this work and how do you speak and how do you not speak. So you need to have a structure in place, and then you need and if you have a clear structure and clear strategy, then you can improvise and become a human in a way on top of that. I'm not it's okay to plan a lot, but you shouldn't plan what to say. Then it becomes like an opera, and this is more like a jazzy thing, I would say, where you listen to the audience and respond to it, and you allow yourself to improvise now and then, at least.
It's a great parallel with music there. Bill, how about you? Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I I love the metaphor, Jonathan, that you used about being like a dinner party, and if you don't listen sort of well and interact well, you won't be invited back, and that could have really long-term consequences. This isn't like in B2C where if somebody decides to not buy a particular consumer product today, but they might come back and do it in the future. The consequences are short-lived. With the B2B dinner party, if you're not invited back, that has sort of fairly long-term consequences. And so I love that example as well as the humanizing part. And the neat thing about social is, as you said, Jonathan, you can listen to it. You can listen to what's going on. Marketers are always trying to market what they think consumers want. But the truly powerful thing about social is you can listen in real time and then educate and inform and speak to the market about what people actually want and they say they want and what they're thinking about immediately. Not we did a focus group 3 months ago or 6 months ago, and now by the time we get that into our machinery, it's 6 months later and what they're thinking has changed. You can listen in real time and inform people and come out with campaigns and messaging about what people are thinking about immediately. Gives you a chance to engage one-on-one with your customers, and it's very difficult to do when you've got millions of consumer customers, but when you have hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of business-to-business customers, you have a chance to engage one-on-one with them and continue building the relationships. I think Jonathan mentioned that in the last the first question. It's about building those relationships. But in addition, there are other rules that are really important. The social rules require very high authenticity. You see a consumer ad and you expect it to be clever and creative and catchy, and that's something you expect. In social, the rules actually more so require you building trust. And how do you build trust? You build that trust by being very, very authentic. You have situations where your customers and your employees can market for you. So you get customers out there who become your fans and your advocates and who like your brand. The great news is they'll amplify and magnify your content and help market for you. The catch, though, is if you make a mistake, and that mistake might be an error or it just might be a way in which you interact with them, those can also be seen by thousands to millions of folks when it's amplified. So very different rules, and I think it presents an enormous opportunity for B2Bs.
And I also think that's one of the reasons why it's important not to try to come off as being perfect as a brand, because you need to act. This is a peer-to-peer network, a huge one. So it's, of course, you need to act a bit like a person. And if you try to be perfect all the time or seem like you're perfect, I mean, then there's nothing more interesting or fun for people than to try to tear down that fiction of perfection. So it's it's a safe recipe for sort of being bullied in a social media crisis. But it's much easier if you admit you're wrong right away and that you're not perfect, and if you show some of the mistakes you make. It's actually a very strong position. I'd say it's a thought leader position, really, to admit mistakes.
Yeah, I love that. If I may just add one more thing, it just triggered a thought for me, Jonathan. Last company I was in, we made professional videos, or we had outside agencies that helped us make the perfect corporate sort of videos to present our products and our solutions. And there was one that I made with our VP of Product Management, just ourselves in a room filled with a relatively inexpensive video camera. We got far more views and shares of that video that our VP of Product Management and I made ourselves in a large meeting room with a cheap camera. That thing got picked up and shared an awful lot more than a corporate video where we spent tens of thousands of dollars to produce it and wasn't nearly as sticky and appealing to people as the one that we had made ourselves for nothing.
Yeah, and I can tell you I've had the same experience. For some reason, people don't like State of the Nation, like videos of the CEOs. It's much better with a handheld where you can, which doesn't seem written out. So
Well, it seems like there's a recurring theme here of authenticity. It seems like you both agree that whether it's being able to create a human element and really humanize the brand and create an authentic experience. Which, Jonathan, to your point, if you wait and try and be perfect all the time, it may have a negative impact. And I think that also trying to be perfect, you may wait. It may delay your brand getting out and doing something in social, and you may miss some opportunities. So I think those are both great points. And
I think we need to disagree very, Bill and I, in order for
well, we've still got some time here. Yeah, we've still got some time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So guys, as you think about business goals for B2B, whether they're broad business goals, whether they're KPIs, whatever it is, we talk about increasing revenues, we talk about decreasing costs, we talk about bringing in top talent from a recruiting perspective. Is there tangible evidence that social can really help drive these initiatives and help B2Bs achieve these goals?
Yeah, very much so. And why don't I take this one first? Absolutely. And there are so many examples here. I'll just highlight a couple of these. The categories kind of fall into ones like increased revenue, typically something around recruiting folks, and reducing costs. Right? Everybody is motivated by generating more revenue or reducing costs. And there's another around recruiting people that I also think is quite interesting. So here's a couple of quick examples here. On increased revenue front, a couple years ago, American Express launched a big break for small business campaign, which is an annual U.S.-based contest that allows small businesses to better connect and engage with their own online audiences. In the second year of the contest a couple years ago, one of the businesses who won the contest, and they get marketing and strategy sessions from Facebook and Amex and others kind of along the way with a cash prize. Well, one business who won the contest, they got a 30% boost to their sales as a result of the contest. Now that's a mix of perhaps some of the consulting they got, but also the visibility that they got publicly via this contest. Just huge gains as a result of that. On the recruiting front, there are a lot of different examples that have been published. One from a management and technology consulting company, they found the labor market very, very difficult for them in one particular country, and only a small part of the population in the workforce is actually out looking for a job. And so they use social to build better relationships with all of the prospective employees out there. They helped fill all of the roles and reach a target of 1,000 new hires in less time than it had taken them previously, all by driving more traffic to their website, posting stories of employees who are happy, and having a very, very aggressive and a very progressive employee recruiting site that leveraged a combination of employee stories, but also very active and engaging folks out there. So a quicker time to fill positions in recruiting and lower recruiting costs. There's a great story also from Cisco of a couple of years ago. As most of us know, when companies launch new products, in the old days it used to be done with a big analyst event. You would fly in all kinds of analysts and employees from management to present, and you'd have this live event, and then the press would take the news, and then they'd go and they'd write it up in their traditional publications. Well, in this case, for a new router, they did their launch entirely via social. So instead of a room full of 50 or 100 analysts and press people, they had 9,000 people who attended the social media product launch, which is 90 times more attendees than they'd have in the past. Got nearly 3 times as many press pickups as with traditional outreach methods, more than 1,000 blog posts, 40 million online impressions, and it costs 1/6 the price of a traditional launch. Now that's just one way of reducing costs via reducing the cost of a launch. There are others that I think Jonathan will go into in the next slide.
Yeah, and for a moment there, I thought recruiting that we didn't we couldn't find any talents, but I know there's a lot of talents. I think one really good recruitment is actually from Maersk, not from Maersk Line where I was, but in Maersk Drilling. Even though we had some really good results as well, and the group overall too. But I'd say, in terms of help achieving, business goals, it's either increasing revenue, of course, earning more money, or reducing costs. And in terms of increasing, I think social selling has shown, and really proven the point that it does make a difference if it's applied the right way. And social selling is very much about empowering your sales reps and thought leaders to go out and network and use these tools to influence buyers, very early on in the buying in the sales funnel. So it's in a way it's most sales reps are already doing this, but they're probably not doing it the most optimal way. And what we see is that 3 out of 4 sales reps using social media in a structured way, they outperform their peers. So that number has come up on several occasions, so around 75%. In terms of reducing costs, then social media customer service is a highly efficient business tool, basically. And as a rule of thumb, one person doing social media customer service can replace 2 persons doing in a call center. And why is that? Well, basically, it's because you're moving away from one-to-one channels to one-to-many. So you achieve call deflection, you would call it, I guess, in customer service language, by simply answering questions in on an open platform. So people come in, they see, there's the answer to my question. I don't need to contact the company. I think what's really amazing about social media customer service is the thing about it's more efficient, yet it's still human. So I don't think if you go 10 years back in time and people had to, imagine customer service of the future, where it becomes much more efficient, and people wouldn't imagine that it would still be human the way it is actually when you do it this way. So, and that is also what people, of course, or buyers and customers want. They still want a relationship with companies. Not least when they have a claim, they have a question.
Makes sense.
So that was nice.
Sounds like we got a little bit of feedback there. Now we're good.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I've got a question that I think that depending on how you approach it, all brands look to ultimately tell stories and weave them into campaigns. Storytelling is a big part of the passion that that individuals have for products, brands that that they utilize. How is storytelling important for B2B? More importantly, how can B2Bs use that and leverage storytelling as part of their their social initiatives?
I mean, I'm all for storytelling. I think really we have a tendency to look a lot at media and technologies and get lost in that a bit. But it's not about whether you hear a story through radio or see it on an outdoor commercial or TV or social media or whatever the next big thing is. What's really important here is that it's actually interesting and that it has some sort of relevance and an emotional impact. And I mean, good stories have always been told. So and the rules of storytelling were formulated more than 2,000 years ago. So I think you're just very smart if you look at these rules, because those are the rules that likely not go away while you're still alive or in our lifetime. So so I think the rules of storytelling should be applied to the extent that it's possible to just about anything you do. It's the sender and receiver model. It's start, middle, end. It's it's not shying away from using emotions, not shying away from giving people something of value instead of just explaining what you have. And then I think, it's what's really good about the focus on storytelling and journalism and being trustworthy is that it becomes journalistic in many ways. And so you move away from, just corporate movies to something called corporate journalism, which is even a trend that you see now, that big brands are hiring corporate high profile journalists for to tell their stories. In Maersk we had one example, which was I have in the archives I found there was a story there, a video, an interview with a captain who the key in Hong Kong in 1975, where the Clara Maersk container ship arrived with refugees from who escaped Vietnam, but there the ship they escaped on was about to sink, and then this Maersk ship came by and picked up all of them. And that story, so that's according to the books, it's the biggest rescue operation in the ever single rescue operation. So and that story was sort of to a large extent untold, and it was just lying there in the archives. And it's a very dramatic story in many ways. And what I did was just I edited the video piece a little bit and put a blog post out there, very simple. And some of the feedback I got was from people who were actually on the ship back then, and they wrote back that they had tears in their eyes when they saw it and hearing the captain's voice again. All of this, which makes you realize that there's actually more to this than ROI and just bottom line value. That there's also culture and history, which is important and we should not forget. And there was even a lady who wrote a comment on on the blog post, which was something along the lines of, "I need to correct you because in the article I wrote something about 3 babies being born on the Clara Maersk," and she said, which is an amazing fact, by the way, but she said it was only two babies that were born there, because I was born on the sinking ship, but my parents didn't want to put the name of a sinking ship on the birth certificate, because what would then happen? So they put the Clara Maersk on. So that was and then she just wrote about how amazing it was for her to see that video and hear the captain's voice again. Stories like that, which they don't cost you anything, but I think you're obliged to tell them in a way as a brand, because they belong to you and they're important to many people out there.
Absolutely, and I can think of a pretty powerful way of talking about humanizing a brand. That's extremely powerful. Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, hey, Jonathan, do you want to briefly share the one about the hitting the whale?
Oh, yeah, but that's more, that's more like a crisis handling situation, because in 2012 there was it's really a very imperfect story, because a gray Maersk ship, all the Maersk ships, normally they're Maersk blue or light blue, but this one was even a gray one, accidentally hit a whale in the Atlantic Ocean and arrived in the port of Rotterdam with this whale lying on its nose, the bulbous bow, and I think people on board the Maersk Norwich, they didn't even know it was there. So they were wondering, why are people taking photos of us? Normally they don't applaud us like that when we arrive. So, but they looked down and they saw this giant creature, which was, probably dead on impact, actually lying there. And the interesting thing here was that we'd been working with social for a year or something. And we just had these discussions in this, in the communications team around, do we want to share the story or do we want to keep quiet and hope it goes away? and we decided to, let's continue this style of being, it wasn't something we did on purpose. Let's not try to hide it. Let's try to explain it instead. And that was really the best decision ever, because people applauded us for doing that, and we just went out and did a Q&A about why did this happen, what will happen, what are we doing to prevent it will happen in the future, and all of that, and showed photos on Facebook and Twitter of what it looked like. So I think that was our big Facebook moment, because we were sitting there refreshing the browser, looking at new comments coming in, and there was a sigh of relief, really, because people were not calling us whale killers or anything like that. It's more like, this is a brave move and a pity, but it could happen to anyone. It was the whale was probably dead before it was hit. So
great.
So based on that, we sort of then we really felt, and we got pretty confident that we had to share, even the bad news, because then you can learn from it. I think it's if you hide all the bad news, then you're stuck in a way in your own progression.
And it's difficult to hide it.
Something.
Yeah.
Well, that's also the case.
In social, it's better to embrace it, because ultimately it's going to get out. And going back to the authenticity piece, I think that embracing it and showing that we are all human is an important piece of this. So, guys, we've talked about a couple things. We've talked about the rules of social, how they differ a little bit from marketing rules. We've talked about goals. Who have you guys seen that have kind of created their rules, executed on it, and are achieving these goals? What are some examples of B2B brands that have had some success in this space? Bill, you want to start?
Sure. So there's literally hundreds and hundreds of examples. I'm going to just quickly breeze through a few that are just top of mind for me, and but there are hundreds of examples of these out there. So the first one I'll share is BBVA. They're a bank. They're a regional bank that's got about 670 odd branches across the Sun Belt region of the U.S. And they reach their marketing to small businesses. They are very well connected to small business owners and to the community. On social, they've got more than 115,000 connections, and you could look at sort of how that's grown over time in a really fantastic way. So social has actually become a very integral part of their business. And they've done some fantastic things here, reaching out to small business. They've segmented their market in micro businesses and startups and entrepreneurs and those who are self-employed. They've gone into LinkedIn and picked particular groups based on their industry affiliation, like healthcare for physicians or small business owners. They did a great campaign that connected the bank not only to small business owners but to their communities as well, and generated a lot of social buzz there, both with direct to the businesses and the community. They ran a great ideas for small business social contest. They generated over 100 million impressions. 85,000 visitors to their Great Ideas Facebook tab, and winners of the contest who are now seen as leaders in their own space in the local community. And the result of that is great for the bank in terms of more business and visibility, as well as additional business for the folks that are being recognized with this. Polaris driving growth in motorcycle dealers. Some of you may be familiar with them. They needed to grow their dealer network. And so to do that, they had to generate a lot more end-user demand. So they've hit goals like outperforming their sales of the Sturgis 2013 motorcycle when they rolled out the 14, largely leveraging social to help drive that, increasing their paid impressions, their non-paid impressions by like 60%, engagements by 30%. Everything that they're doing is upping their presence, and this is driving more end-user demand for the motorcycles through their dealers, and getting more dealers to sign up with them across the country, because those dealers want to see that there's consumer demand before they actually sign up. So they sell exclusively through dealers and distributors, but they are helping fuel that dealer network by driving end user demand, but as well, they're getting all of their dealers now to be social by leveraging what their headquarters is doing. So if anyone's on the call that's got any sort of a reseller or distributor network, they're a great example of empowering their network, and those distributors or, in this case, dealers who don't have the right kind of skill set in-house, they're giving them everything they need to be able to be more social in their individual regions. Indium, I love this example. These folks make solder paste that's used in electronic circuit boards and that kind of thing. They've got an incredibly popular B2B blog for everything around solder paste. What are the characteristics of it? It's written by their engineers, and there's engineers talking to engineers. What are the heat properties of different types of solder paste? What happens to it if it sits on a shelf for too long, or it takes too long in shipping before it's received, or too long before it's used? They're finding the best leads from the business come off their blog. A glass fiber manufacturer whose fibers are used in everything from specialty materials to aircraft and other things, has 35,000 followers in LinkedIn, and they're sharing with them unique technical information, business articles, customer-specific kinds of content and articles to get that community more active and make them closer to the business, because this helps them being seen as a thought leader amongst the people who might want to incorporate their sort of fibers into materials or use those end materials. They'll talk about uses and applications of their technology as it manifests itself in the materials other people use. Big factory automation company posts articles, technical things, technical materials, things that their employees have written up about how folks are using their products or factory automation to 7,000 odd fans. A key here is being out there and being present, and these are more just engaging and generating more customers through social in these particular examples. But one thing I just wanted to highlight are, more and more what folks are trying to do is not just do social. In another pocket of the marketing organization, maybe they're doing email marketing, and someplace else they're doing paid media or paid advertising. But in most cases, not most cases, but in a number of cases now, and the numbers are growing, folks want to do true multi-channel campaigns. We're starting to see some great success here, where you're actually tracking the ROI of your social by integrating multiple means of multiple parts of your marketing mix together. Marketing automation or email, social, and paid media. So doing true multi-channel campaigns where you hit 3 channels in one campaign. Email, marketing outside of your inbox through social, and also paid media or retargeting. So some great things happening in revenue growth from a marketing perspective through social. I'm not highlighting some of the aspects outside of social for marketing purposes, but I'll turn that over to Jonathan, and he can...
I also think, the email thing is really interesting as well. I mean, those people out there who are subscribing to your newsletter, it should be the same people who are, following you on Facebook and Twitter, etc. So those, the employees working with these channels, they should, if not be the same person, then sit next to each other and talk about it, and get a better, idea of what is the audience, and share best practices all the time. Because it's not about the channels, it's about the audiences and what messages resonates well, and where are they in the buying process. So one of the the examples I brought here, I don't know if I brought the Maersk one. I think GE is always impressive because they've been the front runner in B2B for a number of years, and they've really embraced it fully. But AGCO, so who owns, for instance, the Massey Ferguson tractors, and so doing these machines for farmers, I think what they've done in terms of thought leadership is really interesting to watch. And then I think the story is basically they went out and they did some research, listened to the market, and they found out, there's a lot of farmers who are sharing best practices already around, reviews of tractors and et cetera. And, there's a position here where we can go in and actually crowdsource thought leadership content and bring it together. And so in many ways, they're sort of the hub now where you go in and you learn a lot about all the equipment here that they sell directly from the growers and farmers. So to me, that was a very interesting example of.
Those are great examples, guys.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about, we've got great ideas here. What are some tangible ways, if we boil it down and we want some things that are, quick and actionable, what are some tangible ways that B2Bs can really gain more from the social space?
Great. I'll start, and then Jonathan, we can alternate as we go through this. So number 10 on the list, greater brand awareness and do it more cost effectively. You reach thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people. You get your brand out there in all the places that you want for people you know or you don't know, and do it an awful lot more cost effectively than where you're paying for the equivalent impact in advertising.
Yeah. And I think that, in Maersk, the motto regarding point number 10 here was that, I remember we talked about that all the time, that it's low cost, high impact. It might be that you need to pay a bit more to get exposure on, reach your fans on Facebook, but overall it is cost effective still. Yeah, and then there's point number 9. So we've collected a top 10. It's David Letterman style, I would say, a little bit at least. We need a drum roll perhaps, but still point number 9 here. Yeah, exactly. That buyers are influenced by peers and then by other buyers, and maybe that's it might come as a big surprise, but in general, people do not listen as much to what companies are saying directly to them as what their peers are being told by peers. So going out there and trying to influence and have dialogue with people who can then influence others is a hugely important thing, because as Bill mentioned early on, I mean, people are researching or searching the web now to and they make up their mind even before they contact your sales reps. So.
Right, okay, number 8, change the game using an educational journalistic approach. Share those authentic stories, like Jonathan said. In this world where I think Seth Godin, the author, business author, wrote at one point, in this cynical world where you can't believe anything, people are actually looking for authenticity. So change the game using an educational journalistic approach. Crank out content about what your business is actually doing, how customers are benefiting from this, what are the actual technologies or functional capabilities that you bring to bear if you're in that sort of a business, or authentic stuff about the services that your business provides. Change the game using a very authentic educational journalistic sort of approach, and that might even mean hiring people with journalism degrees to create content. Hiring people a couple years out of school who like the concept of writing a lot on deadline once or twice a week, and take a very journalistic approach to cranking out content, just like a newspaper would. Yeah,
and the next idea is really that it might be a bit daring to say so, but I really feel that B2Bs actually have better stories to tell. They're just not very trained or used to telling them. But in many cases, I mean, B2B companies, they have extreme facilities, operations that are, very visual and just waiting to be captured in photo or video. And so the potential there is big. And another thing is that they have, again, it's in general, rich corporate histories. So that I find, at least when looking across the board, more interesting and visionary than B2Cs. Then another part about the storytelling is that there's a lot of knowledgeable people. Of course, there's the same you could say about B2Cs, but here you really have thought leaders employed who you can empower, and they can go out and you can use them as instruments or through whom you can tell your stories. So I think there's a huge potential to tell really good stories.
Great.
I've never been told before.
Awesome. Building on that as a component of the stories, leverage your thought leaders on social in ways that B2Cs cannot. Just an example of this from India, leveraging their engineers, not their marketing people, not folks that are trying to get things polished, their own subject matter experts who are deeply intimate with their products and services to get out there in a rather sort of unconventional way based on how traditional marketing has worked, to be out there putting forward, hey, what are they doing? Many of your employees, customer service people, folks on the front line, have these stories, have the deep knowledge and expertise of what's really going on with customers, and can actually talk about that in ways that will resonate with the customers because they're on the front line. So leveraging those thought leaders out there in ways a B2C can't. You just let them authentically be out there telling stories, and you might have thought leaders you didn't even know were thought leaders.
Yeah, and then there's the selling part. I mean, but the only sales tactic on social that makes sense is social selling, if you ask me, and it's a sales tactic that's only really relevant for B2B. So it, again, as I mentioned before, it's about training and guiding sales reps and other people in the organization to simply just make better use of their professional network. So especially on LinkedIn and Twitter. So getting in early, sharing knowledge early on in the sales funnel to shape customers' demand. That's key. That's showing. Already seen big results from that.
Leveraging social to recruit top talent. Jonathan talked about that in his past company. All of the metrics get better here of the cost to recruit, time to fill open positions, number of candidates who will be applying for positions. Growth for many companies is tied toward filling key positions and hiring top talent. So that's another one that is very important. Yeah, and then there's a customer service part, which is really a place where you can reduce costs. We already talked about that, but it's good for customer experience and satisfaction. We've seen that, and it's more efficient. So, and it's not that hard to implement, I'd say. I think Gartner even predicts that 90% of all large companies or enterprises will use social for customer service by 2020. So, and there's a reason for that. Okay, shape marketplace demand by becoming a trusted advisor. We've kind of talked about this, but be really seen as that trusted advisor. Besides sort of influencing and educating folks, make yourself the trusted advisor by being the source that people turn to for these insights. There's a company in a particular software space that was innovative in that space, and they came out as the thought leader there and always seen as being the trusted advisor. They get 60,000 odd leads generated off of their blog every month by being sort of seen as the knowledge source and the trusted advisor for information about their sector. So people want that trusted advisor and they need it. And then, drum roll, last but not least, drive an ROI from a combination of marketing, social, and paid, owned, and earned media. For many, they are struggling to show what's the value, measurable value delivered by social. And in many cases, it's tied to impressions and fans and numbers of people who you've engaged. But by linking, in particular by linking marketing, social, and paid and earned media, you can show very substantial ROIs just like you can in some of the other areas above. So very interesting opportunities there. We're about to turn to your questions, but before we do that, I just want to offer to folks kind of an opportunity if you're intrigued by what you've heard in this call. If today you've got just a LinkedIn page or a Facebook page, or you're listening for brand, your share of voice and all, and you got a fairly sort of stationary or static social presence, is this an interesting time for you to try and change? Link listening, not just share a voice, but listening for indicators and sentiment, buying interest, loyalty, customer service issues. Link your listening to publishing the kind of content that your customers want, engaging with them, and in ways that are compelling. and actually continuing this loop of listening and publishing, engaging, and analyzing all of that. Is that of interest to you, and are you in a mode of trying to change in order to generate more revenue, reduce your costs, or even hire top talent with social? If so, our own organization will certainly reach out to you in the coming days, but we'd love it if you could just send us a message via Twitter. All of our respective handles are there, so we're going to open this up to your questions at this point. But if you're intrigued by the possibilities and would like to explore it further with us in a demonstration or just deeper discussion, we'll follow up. But feel free to send us a short message via Twitter and let us know what you thought of the webcast, or let us know if you'd like to chat further. With that, I'm sure there have been questions coming in, so love to field those questions. I think, Tara, you may be getting them.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can.
Great. So I do have a few questions that I've come across. The first one is from Sue, and this question is for Jonathan. What were the biggest internal obstacles you've encountered for using social in the business?
I think that, a challenge that I think you'll face in many companies is sort of that you need to get across the idea that this is not about you, and it's not about telling your own stories and talking about all the things that you find are exciting as a company, because you basically like all you do, and you just want to put it out there. But really understanding audiences and trying to create, or develop messages that will resonate well. And then I think another thing that some companies are struggling with is sort of that they need to let go of control a bit, because the idea here is not to, basically companies, when you talk about what's being talked about out there and social, they've already lost control many years ago, because people are talking no matter if you're on social or not. So if you deliver, a really poor customer service experience, someone will complain somewhere. So I think that's really, the thing about letting go of control in order to gain it. I think it's a very difficult point difficult thing for people to really understand. And it is counterintuitive in many ways. But it is what we're seeing also now with collaborative economy, Airbnb and what have you, that you can actually partner with the crowd and they can help you. So in many ways, your customers can become your employees, and sometimes vice versa.
And if I might add to that, I think that's great. What I was going to add is, sometimes you may have to drive kind of success in your own little world, and that success then gets other people intrigued. If you try and get everybody on board, that may be more challenging, but take a little initiative and drive some success with it, and then people will notice, and then they'll start to say, oh, this is really neat, maybe I can try that. So I think driving success with something can help breed more success and overcome some of the internal reluctance.
Yeah, and there's definitely one thing an organization is not very good at. If it's a very democratic process where everyone has to approve, then you can be pretty sure that what you have to tell or say is not very interesting, because then it's you don't find any in the history of literature or movies or whatever. You don't see any big novels being written by a big group of people. It's all often an individual, and then you need to trust that person to do it, and have embrace the uncertainty a little bit, that you cannot control everything. So let's go with the flow, see what happens. And if it's a big mistake, well, I don't think we'll die from it.
Okay. Well, we have two more questions. The next question comes from Jason. There are so many possibilities discussed for how to use social in B2B. Where do you suggest we start?
I suggest, it depends on the company, of course, but I think often it's a good idea to start out small, get some initial success, find your voice, get to know the platforms, and then try and see if you can get your organization on board and involve them. So because then you have a culture there, or hopefully you can develop an internal culture which you can then build on later on and scale it towards customer service or social selling. It's very difficult to go out there and say, yeah, hey guys, you do some you need to become thought leaders on social if you don't have any big sort of channels to support them, corporate channels. So you need to build a culture around it to begin with. Share some good stories, all the content that you probably already have there, and which people might just find extremely interesting. You just didn't think so.
Okay.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
And I may add one or two more comments. Gosh, everybody can start in their own world. Start tweeting and posting to social yourself. So you don't have to wait for everyone else to adopt. I agree with what Jonathan said. Start with something little, and that might be, hey, listening for what's being said about you, your company, your industry, your competitors. You're going to learn something that you might not know today, and that'll help you shape your strategies going forward. But also, hey, start posting to Twitter and Facebook regularly yourself, and start to develop your own follower base and start to get your message out there, and then build from there. Even there's something you can do in your own little world without anybody having to get involved. Just two quick ideas there.
Excellent. And the final question, because we are a couple minutes over the hour, comes from Mike, and that is, with all the noise out there in social, how do we filter the signal we really care about from the noise?
I'll go ahead and answer that one, and Jonathan, you could chime in as well. I think the key here is to listen in a smart way. So there are technologies out there that are Boolean keyword. There are technologies out there that are natural language processing, and they're good, but they usually can't help you pick up what's the actual sentiment, what is the person actually talking about, how do you distinguish between a word like, or a phrase like American Eagle, the bird, American Eagle, the airline, the American Eagle, the clothing outfitter. So you need to be able to understand the context and the meaning of what's being said out there, and that's a key way of filtering out kind of the noise and getting the signal. And technologies like latent semantic analysis are excellent at doing that sort of thing. So I think it's employing the right kind of technology and approach to get rid of the stuff you don't care about and get the stuff you do care about. And then from the stuff you care about, being able to understand what's it mean. Is it a loyal customer? Is it buying interest? Is it an unhappy customer? What do they mean? And what's the meaning and intent of what's been said? So I know how to route it to the right person to take meaningful action on it. So I think it's a combination of the kind of the listening technology to be able to filter out the noise, and that sophisticated listening technology to understand the meaning and sentiment of what's being said, so you know how to sort of route it and act on it and categorize it, rather than just getting a pile full of messages you can't sort through well.
Yeah, and then I'd say, from a blogging perspective, I think it's also about not being afraid to keep it simple, and even working with a good old trick like the implied reader, which is sort of, instead of imagining that you're speaking to a crowd or to a group of peers, then think about, this is actually not something I'm writing for a blog post for my company. It's actually just me explaining something to a friend or a member of the family, and then think about, how can is this really interesting? How can I make it interesting? And but that being said, I think actually often it is more interesting than you think. The geeky stuff is something that a lot of people really like, and that's what we see in the B2B world. So in Maersk, we never imagined how many people were interested in ships and in spotting ships and all the, the length of them and the weight and the engines and the routes and all of that. I mean, so the world is very big. There's an audience for all sorts of topics out there. So you don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to let go.
I did have one last question come in from Sean. If we have time, I think it's a great question. Do you guys have another moment to answer a final question? Great. What kind of analytics do most B2B companies use to assess their progress and success? What are the key success metrics customers are using?
So I'll give a little bit of it, and then I'll let Jonathan go ahead. So you've got metrics that are, everyone measures things kind of according to what they need to achieve in their business. Ultimately, the business goal is to grow revenue. So it's a little tough to show, okay, what's the impact of social on revenue? But you've got metrics like share of voice. You've got metrics like number of impressions that have been made. You've got number of followers and fans and the extent of engagement and things at that level. So you've got a number of different social metrics that people are actually tracking in fairly rigorous ways and trying to grow over time. The extent of engagement, those are some fairly common social metrics today. Look at your share of voice versus your competitors. Those are fairly common metrics today that folks are tracking. Ultimately, it is a little challenging today still to show how does this tie in with a higher level business goal. I think on the recruiting front, as we talked about before, you see measurable decreases in the cost to recruit and things like that hit the bottom line. You see tying social in with the other marketing automation systems that we talked about. Now the ability to show real ROI. You see cost savings in customer service, which are very, very substantial. The time to resolve a first incident, the time an incident that is open. There's a variety of metrics in customer service that show how you're reducing costs there as well. So I think you've got metrics that are tied to different organizational functions and business problems. If it's a customer service metric, that's all about reducing my cost to serve the customer. Can I provide more web self-service? Can I resolve the first incident quickly? And then how does that turn into cost savings from an operational basis in sales and marketing? Am I finding new leads via social by listening for people talking about my product or my service? Can I run social campaigns tied in with my other campaigns that not only get me more fans and engagement, but help drive a higher ROI? And plus, you got kind of metrics. There's a whole variety of metrics around recruiting and sourcing candidates that also show kind of show up in that line of the business. I think that the metrics are different in each part of the business where you're kind of trying to measure your success.
And that is all the final questions. Oh, Jonathan, did you want to answer?
No, it wasn't important. I just think, the whole idea about using social in marketing for, really to test the ground, to see what works and what doesn't work. So you become more efficient in the way you go about in the marketing mix when you then, you use the same messages on other platforms. So really using making the most of the fact that this is a relationship medium where you get feedback very quickly. So it's a good way to optimize and work.
Excellent. So I'm going to close. I know we've run just a little bit beyond the hour, but we have some more questions to answer. So I want to thank everybody for joining. If you'd like to talk to us, send us a message via Twitter, and we'll be delighted to respond. This webcast will be recorded, so if you'd like to get a replay of it, you'll be able to. And in very short order, we'll probably be kind of publishing our top 10 with the full color commentary on those as well as something that you'll be able to have. So I'd like to thank Jonathan for joining and sharing his deep expertise, and thank all of you for joining. And we hope you have a great day. And again, drop us a note if you'd like to engage further and give us any feedback.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.